everyone, I'm Emily. You know me from class. Anyway, this is my presentation on Henry Goddard, and the reason that I chose Another One Bites the Dust by Queen as the background music, if you didn't notice, is because in the 19 teens, this guy would have been, if you were an immigrant, your absolute worst nightmare. He guaranteed that several thousand people just did not get into the United States based on his IQ test that he borrowed from Binet. And, I mean, not everything he did was bad, but this was pretty bad. He actually made government policy happen with these tests. And I really just want to show you what he did with everything, like a 360 view on what he did with his IQ test. So let's hope we have a good time with this, okay? Let's get started. The most important thing to look at when looking into Goddard's testing is his mad crush on Binet. Binet had created the first intelligence test over in France, and Goddard decided that we really needed one in English. It was basically the original cross-Atlantic romance. At the beginning of the 20th century, Goddard was really interested with separating, using his terms, not mine, the retarded, who suffered from poor health or environment and required remedial help, from the feeble-minded, who suffered from decreased mental capacity and required a special curriculum. Goddard believed that the Binet-Simon intelligence test, which he converted over to American English from French, would aid in assessing the nature of this problem, and began to advocate for their use of scales in the schools in the United States. Goddard's advocacy for the Binet test was enthusiastic and exhaustive. Well-connected in areas as diverse as medicine, education, psychology, and law, he championed the use of the test in several venues. For example, he taught or organized courses for teachers on administration of the Binet test at several institutions. These teachers proceeded to use the tests in educational settings throughout the United States. In addition, he advocated the value of the test results as legal evidence. Goddard was also highly involved in the U.S. Army psychological testing program during World War I, further legitimizing this particular approach to mental testing. See, not everything he did with the IQ testing was bad, just the things he used it for in immigration. Now let's get to the more interesting part of the matter. You know, the part where Goddard doesn't look like quite such a great person. In 1912, Henry Goddard visited Ellis Island in New York, the entry point for millions of European immigrants to the U.S. There was a lot of public concern that the physicians at Ellis Island who were examining the new arrivals were, quote-unquote, failing to prevent mentally retarded people from entering the country. Goddard believed that the doctors were identifying no more than 10% of those people with mental retardation. He proposed that psychologists conduct the examinations instead by using translation of the Binet intelligence test. On his first visit to the Ellis Island processing facility, Goddard selected a young man who he thought looked mentally deficient and confirmed that his diagnosis by administering the Binet test with the aid of an interpreter. Although the interpreter pointed out that he himself could not have answered the questions when he was a new arrival in the United States, and that the test was unfair to people unfamiliar with the English language of American culture, Goddard disagreed. Later testing of immigrant populations, all of which had limited command of the English language that was used for the test, revealed, according to Goddard's test results, that the majority, 87% of Russians, 83% of Jews, 80% of Hungarians, and 79% of Italians, were feeble-minded, with a mental age of less than 12. Imagine being told that you were too stupid to enter this country that you didn't know the language of. How is that fair to you? How was that fair to those immigrants? Evidence was taken from this horrendously biased test that Goddard distributed on Ellis Island and used by the government to distribute and propagate the idea that people of minority status had inferior intelligence. Fortunately, now, 100 and some years later, we have moved past this, and we can now say that the APA agrees that cognitive ability tests do not have any sort of bias against any minority group. One thing for certain that we've learned from Goddard is that an IQ test can be very important. They can even be interesting and fun. They just need to be able to be used by everyone, and not specifically one racial group. Come on now, guys. Do you really think I would have forgotten to put Jimmy Neutron's dog in here? He's a critical part of Goddard. Anyway, rock out being a 90s child, and have a good end of the semester. Thanks for watching.